Hello, my loves, and welcome back to episode 3 of our homeschooling vlog. I'm so grateful to have you joining me this week as I share some of the reflections of the past week. Mostly a short episode this week, but sharing what I feel to be the most moving and profound realization I've been able to have so far. So, coming into this week, we were already practicing the art of surrender, as I had mentioned in episode 2. And my son had actually said to me during the weekend that he didn't feel like he should have to start doing homeschooling work because the other children weren't going back to school yet. And he felt like he should have to wait until they went back to school before he should have to do anything. And I said, yeah, sure, that's fair. I totally agree. And so I completely took a step back from even encouraging him to engage with what he perceives to be his schoolwork. And essentially, I've been trying to allow him to understand that all of what we're doing is actually the homeschooling, and it's not just the times where we sit there and practice our handwriting or where we sit there and do specified phonics activities. It's all the things. So I was willing to take a step back from pushing anything that he felt was the schoolwork and just allowing us to enjoy the week. And of course, it was a really beautiful week. We focused more on just home tasks and baking and cleaning, like things like that, and enjoying visits to town and seeing our friends. And so it was actually quite nice to have that surrender in our week. And even the times where he, I guess, more or less was drawn to doing some of those activities like that I'd said again he perceives to be his schoolwork. He was kind of, leaning towards doing those activities and engaging with them. So that was also quite nice to see that natural interest within him. We also spoke about, if he could choose 5 things that he would love to learn this year, what would those be? And so he just chose 5 random topics. I think it was along the lines of, we wrote them down, took a photo, but it was along the lines of wild animals was one, Minecraft was another, meditation was one, which I was a huge fan of because obviously I do guided meditations. I love meditation. I'm a huge meditation advocate. And it's not something that I've ever pushed on my children because I'm also so aware that meditation looks really different for each being. And as we are indeed not all the same, the ways in which we access meditation and that presence and stillness and connection with our inner self can be vastly different between each person. So I'm excited to begin exploring that area with them more, and I'll definitely be reporting back for how that goes. And, it's always been something that I've been interested in creating some sort of curriculum, so to speak, or learning plan around how to engage my children with those things like meditation and how to explore different types of meditation and how to introduce it into their world as something that is just a part of our day to day. Of course, they see me do it and me talk about it, so it already is on some level a part of their day to day. But again, as I said, it's not something I ever push on them because, yeah, I'm just more interested in them finding what they're interested in and what they're naturally drawn to, and I guess watering that seed that's already planted within them, not something that I have to push. So we've now got those kind of 5 topics that he shared with me as a basis for, working towards. And this past week, like I said, we were very surrendered in our approach to homeschooling. We had a beautiful agreement that the following week we were going to begin to really dive into that learning. And yeah, it was just really nice to surrender. And also, it was a beautiful reminder for me too that this is another reason why we've chosen homeschooling because it really does have that flexibility. That if we're sitting there and doing, for example, an activity on syllables, like just to throw it out there randomly, because this is actually something that happened the other day. We were doing an activity on syllables and we'd done, I suppose, what you could say was part of the planned activity. And he was still keen for more. He was like, let's keep going. Let's keep this ball rolling. And it was so funny to have the awareness of myself in that moment of there was this one aspect of me that was saying, okay, well, like that's kind of, I want to spread this out over a week, don't I? So I might just stop it there and then we'll do more tomorrow rather than just continue to go with his momentum. Of course, the latter is actually what I did, though. I continued to go with his momentum and we did the next activity I had planned on syllables. So again, it was just really nice to have that reflection of that is one of the reasons we've chosen homeschooling and what it's about. It's about that flexibility that we can sit there in a like 3 hour period and do as much as we want and go hard. And if he's interested, keep going to the next level and the next level and the next level. Or maybe this week, we're just doing the bare minimum. Again, the learning is always happening. It is just inherent to what we are doing. It is something that is so organic to just our day-to-day life. And it's, I suppose, reframing our mindset to understand that, both his and mine. So, that flexibility, like I said, it was such a great reminder that, maybe one week we're not going to be doing a lot of explicit instruction, but that is also perfectly okay. And we embrace then the other aspects of what homeschooling looks like. I'm sure there are people watching this who do maybe already homeschool and they're like, yeah, obviously, like, why would you make it so structured? But again, this is like all my background, right? This is like I guess you could say this is the setting or the backdrop that I'm coming into this sphere with. And it is just going to be a continual unraveling of my mindset around it. And the beauty of that is, like I said, it's such an expansion, not just for my children, but for me too. Now, this week, I also had the most beautiful and moving, like heartwarming realization. And when I say it, it just sounds so obvious, right? Like it sounds so silly that I would even have the contrasting belief as something that might have been a potential for what could happen. But this really is the nature of all of our beliefs, right? Often if we have a fear of something or a belief in something, if we actually sit there and say, okay, I'm clearly saying that I believe this, and then we allow our minds to just play out that belief, okay, what would it look like if that actually happened? We begin to see how there just is no premise for those beliefs, or also how ridiculous they actually are. And it can really free up our our grasp on these things or even our resistance to them so that we can see, oh, this is actually almost nonsense and I can really let this go now because it's just not something I have to continue either worrying about or holding on to. And so for me, because I am such a multi-passionate person and because this is such a new journey and sphere for me to be in, there was lots of different thoughts that just move through your brain as they do. The thoughts just move through and we can choose whether we access them or not, or go into them or not. But, there was or has been in the past this thought of, you know, is like, what if this is not the right choice for us? Which is almost ridiculous to say because, you know, I do believe that everything that is for me will always be. And so even if we were to do this and it didn't work out, that would still be the right thing for us because I'm always going to be having the opportunities and the learning experiences that will expand me in order to be who I want to be. And am I not trusting that that is the case for my children? That's kind of going off the topic a bit, but I suppose, I have so many interests and passions, and sometimes that's more career driven, sometimes that's more family focused, and yeah, it can change. And I was always desiring a way that those two, for example, if I'm just looking at career and family, that those two could coexist. I was sitting there the other day watching my children play, and it was just like a Monday, and I was just thinking to myself, I am never going to regret this. I am never going to look back at any point and regret making this choice because there truly is, and I believe this to my core, an abundance of time. There is an abundance of time for me to experience everything I desire to experience. So, if I talk about specifically career and the ways I want to serve and the services I want to offer, I have an abundance of time. I have literally my whole life to do that. And I have this small frame, this small window of time with my children at this age. And this is just a reflection that can truly be applied to anyone, whether you're homeschooling or not. I was watching them play and I'm like, I'm never going to look back, like, say, 15 years' time when my children are much older and potentially even at the point of beginning to leave home. I'm never going to stand there one day and look back and say, "Oh, I really regret, choosing to stay home with them when they were young and have like a home and like family-centered life and raising them at home and getting just to actually be a part of their life every day." Like, man, I regret that. The fact that I would have even entertained that thought or even think that that might be a potential is wild to me. I am never going to regret these days. I am never going to regret spending this time with them while they are so young and having their main influence be their mum and dad, like be their actual family unit. I'm never going to regret prioritizing my children and their well-being and their education and their just life experience over like some career I believe I could have or some type of house I believe I could have. Because the truth is, like when we chose this path, we knew there were certain things that we would be letting go of to allow this path to be what it is we wanted. And one of those things you could consider to be like a financial aspect and, you know, having all these, I guess, luxury things. We were completely okay with letting all of that go because we knew that we wanted this. And I'm never going to regret choosing this, like, never. And like I said, whether you are homeschooling or not, maybe your children go to normal school and maybe you work full time. But the next time you are sitting with them as they're going to sleep, and maybe they're really testing you. Maybe they're really pushing their boundaries with that. Maybe they're really going into the story of they feel scared or they can't get to sleep and you have to sit there with them and it's like already 9 o'clock and you're just ready to tap out for the day because it's been a day. In 20 years or 15 years when they're grown up, are you going to sit there and say to yourself, I really like, man, I regret sitting with them when they were going to sleep and they were telling me that they needed me to be with them. And so I chose to sit there with them whilst they went to sleep. And, I felt like I had to sit there for ages. Man, I regret that. No, of course you're not going to think that. You are not going to look back at that and regret that. You're not going to regret choosing that in that moment because it's just such a blessing that you're able to hold that in your heart and know that in that moment you chose love. And sometimes we do have to choose love for ourselves and say, you know what, tonight I cannot. And that is also fine. There is no judgment there. But I guess I wanted to be able to apply it to a scenario where, because I know that I do have people who watch this who don't homeschool. And again, as you know, I'm not a necessarily um, advocate for one over the other. What I advocate is for you choosing what is right for you and your family. And that's it. So for us, this is what's right. And just the beauty of being able to reflect that I'm never going to look back and think, oh man, why did I do that instead of like making lots of money and, serving in the way that I want to serve? Because I have an abundance of time for that. But I have this window with my children right now, and that is a blessing. And so this past week, I've just continuously been reflecting on that, even to the point where, obviously, I think I've mentioned this in a previous video where people might reflect back to me any of my own fears. And I had a few people suggest, like, well, what if your kids, get to a certain age and they tell you that, like, they wish you didn't do it or something. And so I sat with that too. And the thought of my children, like say my eldest son is in his mid to late 20s. Maybe say he's even starting his own family and he's about to have his first child. The thought of him sitting there reflecting, man, I wish my mum didn't like spend time with us. Like I wish she didn't want to keep us home and just really spend our childhood with us and let us like explore and learn about what we were interested in and have slow mornings at home and not get out of our pajamas until whatever time and have freedom and flexibility in that way. Like, it even sounds ridiculous saying it. Like the thought that my son might sit there and go, oh man, I really wish mum never did that with us. Like, I wish she didn't spend all that time with us. That to me makes no sense. Like it blows my mind. Like perhaps there are some circumstances where that might be the case, but I can't imagine that will be the case. And also, if it is, then that is okay as well. Because the point about that I want to make is that we aren't here to control our children's experience. And I have seen a perception that like homeschooling families or parents are just trying to control their children's experience. And I feel like the point is that it's the opposite. We're wanting to give our children the freedom to experience life for themselves. And so maybe, okay, let's just say maybe my son will come to me when he's older and say, Mum, I kind of wish you sent me to school instead. That is okay. That doesn't mean I'm a bad mum. That doesn't mean he's going to have a bad life. That just means that he's learnt how to use his discernment to realize what is right for him. And that's the point. That's the point of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. I want him to understand what is correct for him and what isn't, and that that's not going to be the same for everyone. And so if he does come to me and say, Mum, I wish you didn't do that, I'll be like, okay, I hear you. And, I'm happy for you to share more with me about why. He will be free to come to me and have that conversation. And I know people have asked me that question in the past, like, what if he says that to you? They've inserted some level of fear in it, like, what if you upset him? What if you do the wrong thing by him? But what that negates is my son's right to have his own experience. In that, if that does upset him, and if he does decide that that's the wrong thing for him, that is also okay. He's allowed to have that experience. He's allowed to feel that way. And it wouldn't mean that, we wouldn't have a good relationship. It wouldn't mean that he wouldn't be able to thrive. It wouldn't mean that, X, Y, and Z. I could go on with that. So, the most relieving and soul nourishing realization that I really got to sink into, and I've continued to bring it back to my awareness time and time again, because as I said, it is soul nourishing, that I'm never going to regret choosing this right now. And what my hope for you is as well that whatever you're choosing, and whether it's to do with children or not, whether it's just a choice in like the job that you're doing right now or the home that you're living in or whatever it is, that in your heart that it's a choice you're making with integrity and authenticity. And so you are never going to look back and regret it because it is what sings most true for you. So that's essentially the crux of what I wanted to share from this past week. The only other thing that I desired to share was that I will put the link in my bio again for the write and wipe sleeves that we've been using, which have been awesome. I've also added a link to mini whiteboards because in case you don't already have one of those for your child, I highly recommend it. They're incredible. We've been using them, like I've got two of them for both of my older boys, and we use them daily. I love them. Like I'll just use them for myself. I love a mini whiteboard. So both of those links are in my in the description, sorry, of this video. And the other thing that I wanted to share, and it's this is more of a like practical, light-hearted thing that I've done. So this year I created my own yearly planner. And as a part of that, when I was searching all the public holidays for the year in my area, I also stumbled across a calendar that had a bunch of fun, weird dates. So, you know how like everything has its own holiday? So you might have International Chocolate Cake Day or International Lion Day, like things like that. I handpicked a bunch that I know that my children love and that I also feel like aligned with our family's values, and I put those into my planner. So, just this past week, we had International Lego Day. And I used that as an inspiration, more or less, to do a daily Lego challenge. So each morning I actually use one of the whiteboards. I write daily Lego challenge and I write them a different challenge for what they need to do. So the first day on International Lego Day was build the coolest alien that you can. And just using all the Lego that we had, they had to build an alien. And the next day we did as well. We did build a bridge to get across this river. And all I did was draw a river on some paper, and they had to build a bridge to get across the paper river. And honestly, the path they chose, I love getting to see their mind at work because both my eldest sons have such a different way of thinking about things. And so the ways they chose to address the bridge situation even surprised me because I would not have chosen to build a bridge like that. So it's been a lot of fun. And in the description, I'm going to put 20 ideas if you decide that a daily Lego challenge is for you as well, because maybe your children love Lego. Maybe you love Lego. I love Lego. It's also a great morning invitation to play. And what that is an activity that when they wake, they are able to do independently. They're able to find engaging, and it's such a great alternative to screen time. I'm not a huge fan of screen time. We do use screens in our house, but we do have lots of boundaries around it, and that is an ever evolving journey for us here. And so, if you're looking for a way to engage your children in the morning, a daily Lego challenge is absolutely where it's at. So, yes, in the description box, I have popped 20 ideas for daily Lego challenges that you can use to engage your children, perhaps when they first wake up, perhaps when they get home from school, if your children go to school, or at any time of the day. And if you have any suggestions of your own, I would love for you to pop them in the comments because I'm loving being able to add any ideas I can to my own daily Lego challenge list that we're just going to continue doing every single day. So, with all that said, I want to thank you so much for joining me and watching this week's video. If you have any questions, any ideas, any topics you would like me to talk about, or any daily Lego challenge ideas, pop them in the comments. Like this video if you like this video, and absolutely subscribe so that you can be kept up to date with any releases I do, both for my homeschooling vlog and anything else that I share on this channel. Uh, Otherwise, I'm giving you all my love, always in all ways. See you next time.